we left off. We're in lesson 5.2, part 3. It's adding and subtracting radicals officially, but we got to the second section, and it's multiplying binomials. So the idea is that binomial has adding or subtracting in it, so we have to know how to multiply them. On A and B yesterday, we distributed. On C, what did you guys tell me you're going to have to do?
FOIL.
We're going to FOIL. Okay, or it's officially distributive property also, if you want to get official. So let's work on it. FOIL, what's first?
X to X.
And X times X is?
X to
X squared. Okay. Outsides. X times the square root of 10.
X square root of 10.
I'm going to say X square root of 10. And that's one of those where we tend to put the X in front of the square root so it doesn't accidentally look like it's under the square root. Okay, that's outsides. Insides. Negative square root of 10 times X is going to be negative square root of 10 times X. Negative times positive is going to make it
Negative.
negative. And then square root of 10 times X, we can just write it as X square root of 10. And then last, negative square root of 10 times positive square root of 10.
10 to the nope.
Depends where you're going with that. What is a negative times a positive? Negative. Now, easiest thing to do here is just square root of 10 times square root of 10. We multiply two square roots, just multiplies what's underneath them, right? What is 10 times 10? 100. So we can say that this is the square root of 100. Okay, guys. What kind of cleanup can we do? There's two very easy cleanup steps we can take. What do you see? What do you notice about these middle terms?
They're opposites.
Yeah, they're opposites, aren't they? Plus x square root of 10 and minus x square root of 10 are going to cancel. So they're going to be gone. X squared out front is x squared. What about the square root of 100? It's 10. So what are we going to have? X squared minus 10. Okay. Questions on that? We're not as talkative today. As a class, that is. I don't know if that's because we're just not as talkative today, or if there's a confusion issue. I'm going with not as talkative for the moment. But okay. What are we going to do on D? Okay, we're going to distribute. We're going to FOIL, whichever you want to call it. Okay. Let's see what we get. 2x times 2x is?
4x squared.
4x squared. Good. Outside. 2x times negative square root of 3.
2x negative square root of 3. Or, no, negative 2x square root of 3.
There you go. So a positive times a negative. I would put the negative out front. And then 2x times square root of 3 is just 2x square root of 3. Okay, what about my insides? Negative square root of 3 times 2x?
Negative 2x square root of 3.
Same thing, right? Negative 2x square root of 3. And then our last terms. Negative square root of 3 times negative square root of 3. A negative times a negative is a positive. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 can be written as square root of 9. What's that square root of 9 going to turn around and become, though? A 3. So a good rule to learn is that when you multiply a square root by itself, square root of 3 times square root of 3 is going to eventually become just 3. So that's a good rule to learn. Okay, guys, what happens on this one when we clean it up?
Negative 2x square root of 3 Well, maybe not.
They go together, but do they cancel this time? No, the difference, last time, I don't know if you guys remember the vocabulary word, on example C, these are what we call conjugates. They were the same terms, but they had opposite middle signs. And so those middle terms cancel. On this one, they have the same signs. They're not going to cancel. So we're going to end up adding those middle terms. So I'm going to keep my 4x squared out front. What is negative 2x square root of 3 minus 2x square root of 3? Think of them as like terms. They both have a square root of 3. They both have an x. So what's negative 2 minus 2?
Negative 4.
Yeah. So this is going to be minus 4x square root of 3. Because it's just negative 2x minus 2x. That's minus 4x. And then plus the square root of 9 is plus 3. Can I clean up anything else here? I've got an x squared, I've got an x square root of 3 term, and I've just got a 3 term. That's as cleaned up as it's going to get. Okay? Questions so far? That's kind of a continuation from yesterday, right? Now, where that is important, okay, why we need to know how to multiply these binomials or distributes here, okay, is related to the backside. So let's look at our last section here. And we talked in the last lesson about rationalizing the denominator. You're not allowed to leave a square root symbol in the denominator in a final answer. Okay? So we have to talk about rationalizing the denominator. As you look at all 3 examples here, they all have a square root in the denominator, don't they? Okay? And if you look at them, they really don't have anything else they could do. So we've got to get rid of those square roots. So to rationalize a denominator that has a binomial denominator, so where 2 pieces are added or subtracted, multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. And the example I provided you there is if you're given 3 minus the square root of 7, the conjugate is 3 plus the square root of 7. I feel like we did this some other time somewhere along the way. I don't remember in what scenario, but I think we've done this somewhere, just not with square roots. So, okay, and if you were given 3 plus the square root of 7, you'd have to multiply by 3 minus the square root of 7. Okay, so let's look at A. We have 1 over 2 plus square root of 5. Okay. As that fraction stands, can I simplify it? Not really. Can I leave it as is? Can I leave that radical in the denominator? No, of course not. So, if it was just the square root of 5, we can multiply by square root of 5 to make it a perfect square. But because there's 2 things added, that doesn't work. Okay, so we're going to multiply by the, what word did I use? Conjugate. What do you think the conjugate of 2 plus the square root of 5 is?
2 minus the square root of 5.
2 minus the square root of 5. Now, you guys have done fractions for a few years at this point. If you multiply the denominator by 2 minus the square root of 5, then you have to multiply the top. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 2 minus the square root of 5. On top, 1 times 2 minus square root of 5. What happens when you multiply by 1? Stays the same, doesn't it? So it's the idea of 1 times 2 minus 1 times the square root of 5. 1 times 2 minus square root of 5 is still 2 minus square root of 5. What do we have to do in that denominator? It's a binomial times a binomial. So officially we're going to, what were we just doing on the front side? FOIL. Okay, let's FOIL. First, 2 times 2 is 4. Outsides, 2 times negative square root of 5. So positive times a negative. It's going to be negative and then what? 2 square root of 5. Insides. Positive square root of 5 times positive 2. Just stick them together, and it's going to be plus 2 square root of 5. And then last, square root of 5 times negative square root of 5. Positive times a negative makes it a negative square root of 5 times square root of 5. I wrote square root of 25. I heard someone, I think, say 5. Is that okay? Yes. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is going to be 5. You can go ahead and jump to that. That's perfect. Okay, let's clean up. The top. 2 minus the square root of 5 stays 2 minus the square root of 5. The denominator. What do you notice happening? What do we notice? What are those middle terms doing? They cancel, don't they? Negative 2 square root of 5 plus 2 square root of 5 are going to cancel. So then I'm left with, I have the 4 minus, what is square root of 25? It's a 5 if you haven't already written it down. Okay? Almost there. 2 minus square root of 5 over, what is 4 minus 5? Negative 1. Now, go one more step. Don't leave your answer like this. You're dividing these by negative 1. Can you divide both of those terms on top by negative 1? Yeah, we can divide anything by negative 1. So we're going to divide this. So what is 2 divided by negative 1? Negative 2. What is negative square root of 5 divided by negative 1? And it becomes plus square root of 5. So for final answer, I'm looking for negative 2 plus square root of 5. And I should have written smaller. I'm kind of running into example B. Maybe by chance you guys didn't run into example B as much as I did? Whoops. Okay, guys. I guess I didn't run into it too much, did I? It just seems like I did. Okay. Okay, guys. Got the idea? Okay, 2 more. Let's try them. 5 minus the square root of 2 over 2 minus the square root of 3.
2 plus square root of 3.
Okay. I can't leave that square root of 3 in the denominator. In order to get rid of it, we multiply by the conjugate. The conjugate of 2 minus square root of 3 is indeed 2 plus square root of 3. What we do to the denominator? We do to the numerator. Now, this problem is really not a whole lot different than the last problem, other than the last problem I just had to FOIL on bottom. This problem I have to FOIL on bottom and on top. So it's just a little bit more multiplying, but the idea is the same. So, FOIL with me. First, 5 times 2, 10. Outside, 5 times square root of 3. Plus 5 square root of 3. Inside, negative square root of 2 times 2.
2. Negative 2 square root of 2.
Yep, negative 2 square root of 2. And last, negative square root of 2 times positive square root of 3.
5. Nope.
Negative square root of 6?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
I didn't hear positive or negative in your defense,
No,
so I just heard square root of 6, which I'll take.
I said 5, so that's okay.
Yeah. At least I knew you were using the right numbers if you say 5. Okay. FOIL in the denominator, right? 2 times 2?
4.
Outside, 2 times the square root of 3.
2 to the square root of 3.
Plus 2 square root of 3. Inside, negative square root of 3 times 2. Negative 2 square root of 3. And last, negative square root of 3 times positive square root of 3.
9. Positive 9. Nope, negative 9.
Negative square root of 9. Okay. Well, let's see. On that, let's start with the top. Wait, on top. I have a 10. I have a 5 square root of 3. I have a 2 square root of 2 and a square root of 6. Does anything clean up there?
No.
It seems like it should, doesn't it? But I got a square root of 3, a square root of 2, a square root of 6, and one whole number. As it stands, unless something cleans up later, we're going to have all 4 pieces. So 10 plus 5 square root of 3 minus 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 6 all carries along. Denominator. This is what you were so anxious for.
Cancel.
Okay. I have a plus 2 square root of 3 minus 2 square root of 3. Don't ever assume they cancel. Make sure that you did it right and they cancel. So let's see. What do we have? We have a 4 out front minus, what is the square root of 9? 3.
1.
Big math here. So we now have 10 plus 5 square root of 3 minus 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 6 all over 1. What do you think? Is that the answer we should give? No, because anything over 1 is just
1.
itself, right? So basically everything divided by 1 is just itself, so we're going to have 10 plus 5 square root of 3 minus 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 6. Okay. Got one more to look at here. What did I throw in on this last one?
It's a whole number. And the square root of not a number.
Okay.
1.
Yeah. I threw in some variables, right? There's an x to deal with. Does it change our process? No, it doesn't. Okay. We still have a square root in the denominator we have to get rid of. Okay, we have to get rid of that square root of x. We can't have a square root in the denominator. So, what are we going to multiply by?
1 plus square root of x.
Right. The conjugate of 1 minus the square root of x is 1 plus square root of x. What you do to the denominator, we do to the numerator. Now we multiply on top. What are we doing on top?
Multiplying it just by
Yeah. We're not foiling, are we? It's just a distributive property. So negative 4x times 1.
4. Negative 4x.
Negative 4x. Negative 4x times square root of x.
Negative 4x square root of x.
Minus 4x square root of x. Okay. Denominator.
Now you distribute.
Now we're going to do that big old FOIL distribute. 1 times 1. 1 times square root of x.
1 plus square root of x.
Okay. 1 square root of x, or I'm just going to write square root of x. Can we handle that? Okay, keep foiling. Negative square root of x times 1.
Negative square root of x. Yeah.
Negative 1 square root of x, or just negative square root of x. And Negative square root of x times positive square root of x. Negative times positive is a negative. Square root of x times square root of x is square root of x squared. Okay. A lot of x's. You just have to be careful. Okay, let's see what we can do and clean up. On top, I have a negative 4x and a minus 4x square root of x. They're not like terms, are they? I'm just going to carry them down as is. So negative 4x minus 4x square root of x over. Okay, what about this denominator? Okay, middles cancel as they're supposed to. Square root of x minus square root of x end up canceling. Out front we have a 1 to bring down. Minus square root of x squared. What's the square root of x squared? X, right? Because remember, a square root, this is a little 2, right? And you do that 2 divided by a 2, and it becomes x to the first. So square root of x squared is just x. Okay. Anything else? And the answer is no. This one, because of the x's, it doesn't clean up a whole lot. It's just kind of done there. But the whole point was I got rid of the square root in the denominator, which is what I needed to see happen. Okay? Okay. Your homework that is due tomorrow. It's lesson 5.2, part 3. You have a little bit of work time. Let's use it.